They say every day is for the thief, one day for the owner of the house. But ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission, has reversed the role. It is now every day for the owner of the house. If you're involved in bribery, over-invoicing, or any shady deal, the day of reckoning has come. ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission, is watching you. If you're reported for any corrupt practice, you'll be investigated, prosecuted, and punished. Corruption is harmful to our nation. Join the campaign against it by reporting any corrupt practice to ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission.
Let we join hands with ICPC, make them better.
Let's make Nigeria great again.
ICPC, they watch you.
Anti-corruption.
Break the chain of corruption now. Don't give, don't take. This message is brought to you by ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission.
The year 2020 might have come and gone, but the world will not be in a hurry to forget its ups and downs as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. The outbreak of the novel virus brought the global community to its knees. World economies crumbled, government businesses were put off, educational activities were halted, sporting events were jettisoned, social gatherings were disbanded, and religious activities were discouraged. In fact, the entire globe came to a standstill. In spite of these enormous challenges forced by the circumstance of the global pandemic and the limited human resources the Commission had to work with, ICPC was able to make significant impact in the fight against corruption. Welcome to Corruption Must Go, ICPC's weekly television program. I am your host, Murna Barnabas Atiai. Today on the program, we shall beam our searchlight on the giant stride the Commission had recorded in 2020, which climaxed with the marking of the Commission's 20th anniversary and the second National Anti-Corruption Summit. Stay with us. If you're just tuning in, this is Corruption Must Go. Our focus for today is on the Commission's enforcement activities in the year 2020. Despite the challenges posed by COVID-19, the Commission during the year under review had carried out various numbers of petition and non-petition intelligence-led investigations, prosecution of cases, and secured some convictions. Let us hear from the head of prosecution department, Mr. Henry Imori.
Well, like you rightly said, 2020 has been was a challenging year. We had targets to meet in line of with respect to cases filed and prosecution cases we are prosecuting and convictions secured. But unfortunately, from March till about July, courts were shut. We couldn't file cases. Cases were just going on sparingly. But we still managed to meet some of our targets. Like in the area of filing of cases, we were able to file. We go to at least 80%. Then in the area of conviction secure, we even surpassed that of 2019, which is a very welcome development. And we are hoping that in 2021 we'll do better, despite the second wave of the COVID-19, but I think we're going to do better this year. We secured about 27 convictions last year, and notably amongst them, we secured a conviction against one of the chairmen of one of the states where Christians Welfare Pilgrims Board. He was charged under Section 19 of our Act for using his position as the chairman of the Pilgrims Board to arrange himself money meant for people to go for pilgrimage. He diverted some of them to his personal use, and we charged him to court, and he was convicted by the court. He's still serving his prison term, and though he has appealed, we pursue the appeal. If they pursue the appeal vigorously, we will file our briefs when necessary. That's one of the convictions we secured, and another conviction we secured is against the registrar of the Federal High Court. Sometimes, some years back, some judgment debt was deposited at the Federal High Court, and the registrar, being a signatory to that account, helped itself to over 78 million of the judgment debt. And when it was discovered, we charged him to court, and he pleaded guilty and offered some of his properties to recover the money, and he's still serving his prison term right now as we speak. So those are just one of the two major convictions. Although we secured other major convictions, but I would just want to dwell on these two, because why I'm dwelling on these two, that these are people who hold position of trust. The first one, you're the chairman of a Christian pilgrims board, and money meant for people to go on pilgrimage. We know what pilgrimage is all about, to go to the Holy Land, and you diverted some of those funds. The people could not access the funds to go for the pilgrimage, and you pocketed some of those monies. Then you, an officer of the court, the second case, an officer of the court, the public, how will I put it now? You hold the position of responsibility to the public. Judgment debt was paid into the court's account, and you, as the registrar, decided to help yourself to over 78 million of that fund. So we as individuals should learn, when we are put in positions of authority and trust, we should learn to maintain that trust, because the public expects that much from us. So my advice to other Nigerians: when you hold these kind of positions, you should live up to your responsibilities. If funds are given to you, manage those funds well. Because if you decide to help yourself and reports come in, even whatever your position, won't hesitate to go to court. And if the court so decide, you'll be convicted.
ICPC salutes all the people at the front line of the COVID-19 fight. We also salute you for saying no to corruption and yes to integrity. Together, we shall overcome. Report acts of corruption to ICPC on this toll-free number 0800-2255-4272. This message is from ICPC and NTA.
In the area of asset recovery, ICPC in the preceding year effected the seizure of liquid cash, movable and immovable properties running into billions of naira to deny corrupt individuals the enjoyment of the proceeds of their loots. In addition, misused assets of government in various forms had also been recovered. The head of Asset Tracing Recovery and Management Department, Mr. Kayode Adedayo, throws more light on this success story.
In asset tracing and recovery, I would say last year, 2020, was, despite the fact that it's quite challenging for us all over the world, for us in ICPC, when it comes to our operations as far as investigation is concerned and asset tracing and recovery, I would say it's a boom. It's a boom because in last year alone, I must confess to you, we had recovery that are close to, if I had it all together, almost like 200 various assets, vehicle, land, building, businesses, and farmland with very high values. And then there were also lots of cash recovery. Now, you want to know how these recoveries come about? Through the Constituency and Executive Project Tracking Initiative of the Commission. A lot of projects that otherwise would not have been executed, or the equipment and asset purchase for that project were kept in private custody, were trapped, were stopped. Sometimes we are housed in safe custody, either in ICPC premises or at the police station, and these were duly returned to the appropriate beneficiaries. So many numbers of these vehicles, tractors, ambulances, and buildings. Now, that is just one area of asset tracing and recovery. Another aspect is through investigation, and this investigation comes from two basic groups. Had as a way of petition that are written and submitted to the commission, which we investigate, and assets were identified, or through intelligence-led, that means through sourced by intelligence, either through human intelligence or other open sources intelligence. And the commission steps into it, investigates these, and the issue of assets are involved, and these were traced and recovered. Maybe I should do this, let you know that the work of asset tracing, recovery, and management involves 5 basic steps: asset investigation, asset identification, asset tracing, asset recovery, and asset management. And I can give you a brief on each. At asset investigation, in the course of investigation, when assets are fingered or it presupposes that the illicitly acquired wealth has been converted into any form of asset, movable or immovable, that asset investigation begins. We begin to investigate the asset because you need to be able to link that asset to the abuse of office. We need to link that asset to the illicit activity and the illicit wealth. Then asset identification. You must be able to identify specifically assets that are linked up, not just the entire asset of the respondent, or what in our normal language we say your suspect, but specific assets that are sourced, that are acquired through this, either wholly or partly, must be identified. And in the course of the identification, the locations needs to be identified too. Then asset tracing, we involve physical identification and location of the asset and be able to mark such assets. Because it's not just enough that you have been able to locate where the asset is. It's not just enough that you have been able to identify what the asset is or where the asset is. You equally must have been able to mark the asset or signboard it. If it's a land, you put a signboard. If it's a building, you put a mark. You say, this asset is under investigation by ICPC. Keep off. This asset is seized by ICPC. Keep off. This asset is forfeited to federal government by court order. So. Keep off. That is marking. And then if it's a land there's nothing on needs to mark, you put a signboard. So there'll be a signpost erected on it. So anybody who passes through or want to transact that asset knows that there's a caveat, and know that it's either it's under investigation, or it's either it's been seized, or it's been finally forfeited. Because when we talk about forfeiture comes in 2 forms. It's either it's an interim forfeiture or a final forfeiture. When it's interim, the process of investigation is still going on and proved. But when it's finally forfeited, it's been forfeited by another overnight court. So it could only be reverted, or it could only be vacated by an appropriate appeal. So that is put there as a caveat and a signal for anyone to just be careful. And so, like I was saying, that is at the point of asset tracing. Then when we get to the point, which is the first stage, which is asset recovery, that is when you ensure that all the normal processes of dispossessing the respondent from illicit acquired asset is taken through. You need to go to court, you need to make publications, you need to invoke your power of seizure, you need to go to court and begin the process for interim forfeiture. When interim forfeiture is there, then you make necessary publication of whatever instruction that the court has given and go on with the process of ensuring that it is finally forfeited. And when it's finally forfeited, of course, you now move to the level of asset management. How do we do? Are we disposing the asset? Are we renting the asset out? Are we leasing the asset? And of course, I'm sure that you are all aware now that by presidential directive, there's an interim management committee set up under the supervision of the Honorable Minister for Justice. and Attorney General of the Federation that comprise of all relevant MDAs, Ministry, Department, and agencies, and meet almost every week in the office of the Honorable Minister of Justice. The chairman of the committee is the Permanent Secretary and Solicitor General for the Federation in the Ministry of Justice, Mr. Dayo Apata, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, and that's representative from various organizations, including ICPC. I'm privileged to be the one sitting for ICPC in that committee. Now that has to do with what do we do, how do we dispose, if you are disposing, they are responsible for disposing. And then, but before the process of disposing, the holding of the asset is part of management. Whatever we do, keeping the asset clean, keeping the asset functional, is all part of the management. You renting it out, you hiring it out, you leasing it out, you lock, even if you choose to lock it up and just be guessing at it every day, well, it's your decision. All these are encompasses in the asset management decision.
I am a Nigerian, a highly cultured race. My culture abhors corruption, and with my integrity, a new Nigeria is possible. I say no to corruption today to build a future for my children. Join me and imbibe the culture of integrity to build a Nigeria of our dreams.
This is a single production.
You're still watching Corruption Must Go, and our focus is still on the Commission's enforcement activities in the year 2020. In its efforts at ensuring the satisfactory execution of all zonal intervention projects, also known as Constituency Projects, and obtaining value for money, the Commission commenced the tracking of these projects in 2019. The objective of the tracking exercise was to ensure delivery of basic services to the grassroots and value for monies released. Following the huge success recorded in the first phase in 12 states, the second phase was expanded to 16 states. These two recorded remarkable success. Mr. Hassan Hafiz Mohammed of the Constituency Executive Project Tracking Unit tells us more.
(2020) has been a very, very challenging year all over the world. Nigeria not an exception, so also the ICPC. We've had our challenges as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. However, ICPC has been able to achieve virtually all the things that are set out to achieve in 2020. With regards to the Consensus and Executive Project Tracking Initiative, we have been able to roll out the phase 2 of the exercise, albeit a bit belated lately. It was supposed to have started around January, February, except for the COVID-19 pandemic and the resultant lockdown. So we rolled it out in July 2020, and it has been a wonderful exercise, just like the phase 1 was. In fact, the phase 2 was more robust and more inclusive than phase 1. Let me just put a little bit of the program in perspective. The Consensus and Executive Project Tracking Initiative has its basic objectives, which is to ensure proper execution of projects and to ensure value for money in the execution of public funded projects and compliance with regulatory requirements. The conduct of this exercise is heaved on 3 fulcrum basically. First is the delivery process, which includes or which revolves around the procurement process, the bidding process, to the actual execution of the projects. The second fulcrum is the value component, that is to say, to ensure that the project is executed as it is provided and specified in the bill of quantities, and to ensure that the projects are not over-invoiced, to ensure that the public and government gets value for every kobo spent on public funded project. The third fulcrum is the management and sustainability of this project. Of course, from the experiences we had during the phase 1 of the exercise, one of the findings was that these projects virtually had no ownership. After the execution, nobody owned the projects. So when there was a small fault or small problem, there is no management structure in place to manage these projects in a sustainable way to ensure continuous usage and utilization for the lifespan of the project. For instance, where you have a water project, say a borehole or a school, and the roof of the school is now blown off by wind, there is no structure on the ground to ensure how that roof will be repaired, or how the borehole, when the submersible pump is burnt out, how it's going to be replaced or repaired. So these are the major fulcrum of the CPTG exercise. Now again, just like it was in the first phase, we have focal sectors, and the focal sectors are agriculture, water, energy, healthcare, and education. These are projects that we believe touch on the lives of the common man, the rural man in particular, the most. These are the things that are mostly missing in rural areas that touch on the lives of the common man. So those are focal sectors. It means 80 to 90% of the projects that we selected for tracking during phase 2 are from these sectors. They are education related, concerning schools, provision of water, electricity, healthcare delivery system, and stuffs like that. Now, one of the other achievements that we made in the conduct of the tracking exercise is the addition of executive projects. During phase 1, we just dealt basically with constituency projects, zonal intervention projects, but looking at the successes and the need for the project to be more robust and be more inclusive, the Commission in its wisdom now added selected executive projects, which also are selected from the focal sectors that I mentioned earlier. And so phase 2, 2020, we took on 14 states. In phase 1 it was 12 states, sorry, 16 states during phase 2. Now this is like an improvement on what we did during phase 1. Phase 1 we just took on 12 states. Now we've taken on 16 states, cutting across the geopolitical zones. We also selected a total number of 833 projects, both executive and constituency projects, which is much higher, almost 100% over what we took during phase 1. During phase 2, again, we've had recovery so far. Phase 2 has not ended completely, but we've attained 90% of the exercise, and so far we've made cash recoveries of over 330 million naira, and then we've recovered assets of over 660 million. Cumulatively, the exercise during phase 2 has saved government over 2 billion naira. And then, most importantly, is the fact that we've made over 300 runaway contractors to return to site to complete projects that they had otherwise abandoned, or to carry some remedial actions on some aspects of the project, though executed, be poorly done. So this underscores largely the achievements of the activities of the CPTG during phase 2 of the exercise. That's what we've done in 2020. Ordinarily, if not for COVID-19, we're supposed to have undertaken 2 phases, phase 2 and phase 3, in 2020 alone. But with the coming of COVID-19 and the resultant lockdown, we couldn't start phase 2 in January as initially envisaged, so we started in July, and we're just finishing it now.
From the informed submissions of the speakers, it is clear that challenges and disappointments can be catalysts for achievement, and that was what ICPC had leveraged on in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. That's our package on today's edition of Corruption Must Go. Keep a date with us same time next week as we bring you our success story in the areas of prevention, public education, and enlightenment. Thanks for watching, and bye for now. I am Murna Barnabas Atia.